Hello, everyone. Welcome to our inaugural episode of Radio Retrospekt. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, man.
Yep, that's my cohort in crime, Nathaniel. My name is Antonio, and basically we just want to take you through a walk through history. Every episode that you listen to will be focusing on the events of that particular year, and we're gonna just switch it up every single episode. So this first episode will be 1960.
It's a big year.
Very big year.
A lot happened, man.
Kennedys.
Tons of stuff, man. We were just talking about how it was the year of Africa, which is strange. You'd think that would warrant more than just the 1 year, but big stuff happened that year in Africa, right?
A lot of stuff. Yeah, a lot of I think something like 17 countries became independent.
17 countries became independent. It's like the unboxing of the African continent, you know? England, France, especially France, like 13 of those countries came from France.
14, I think.
Was it 14?
13 or 14. Yeah, 14 actually.
Yeah, so a lot.
Before in the 40s, I think only, and again, we're trying to be purist here, so we're gonna try to not mention any other year.
Right.
But basically, in the 40s, only 4 countries in Africa became independent. In the 50s, only 6.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
So
it's
just
big year for that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before we get into our first event, let's talk a little bit about the economics of that year. Kind of get people an idea of.
It's a good call. It shocked me actually to see some of these things.
Yeah.
Thing that stood out to me the most was the average house in the U.S. at the time, $12,000.
Yep.
How crazy is that? Like we look at today. I grew up in California, right, and exceedingly more than that. Like absolutely crazy. You know, the inflation does some incredible things, right?
Yeah.
Crazy times. Price of gas, 25 cents.
25 cents. Rent was on average $98.
Yeah, dude.
Average income of someone was about $5,300 a year.
Wow.
New car, get that new car smell with it. $2,600 would cost you in 1960.
Yeah, man, times change.
Yeah. Other stuff was just the stamp was 4 cents. A gallon of milk was $1.04.
Yeah.
Right? Just unbelievable.
I actually have no idea how much a gallon of milk costs today. I just can't buy it. Do you know?
I get all my milk just from the cow that we have at home.
You milk?
Yeah, I milk.
Your own milk?
Yeah. Brooklyn cows.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Just baby cows and you just milk them.
Yeah, dude. Ample hills, right?
Yeah.
That's the way it goes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think we should jump right into... Well, you know what? Actually, should we give listeners like an idea of how we're going to actually be breaking down the show?
Absolutely.
You know?
Go ahead, Nathaniel.
So we're going to be breaking the year up into chunks, right? So it's easier to understand, little bite-sized nuggets, and you guys can really get a sense for what happened during this year across a variety of different categories. So we're going to start out with international events. We already started to dive into that a tiny bit. Then we'll dig into what was happening with U.S. history, and a piece of that, obviously, in 1960 would be the Cold War. We'll talk about culture. We'll talk about inventions from the era.
Science.
We'll sample some music for you guys. So it'll really be like you're there. So with that, we'll dive right into international. Let's pick up Year of Africa again, right? Like this was after this is after World War II, right? Yep. So there's a big movement globally towards emancipation and states' rights, and getting away from colonialism. And Africa was a big, they benefited from that. It ended up being pretty big deal. The irony being, of course, France gives up 13 colonies and detonates their first atomic bomb in Africa that same year.
The Algerian desert.
Yeah.
During the Algerian War.
Right, exactly. And that, of course, makes them the fourth nuclear power in the world, next to U.S., UK, and USSR, which is, big deal in and of itself. And Africa emerges as a big force in the United Nations because of this. Now you have 17 separate countries that are not part of European superpowers.
Yeah, and people are starting to recognize just Africans on a world stage.
Yeah.
So that sort of symbolic movement just it's going to spread. So it spreads to America, especially to African Americans. But there's a thing called Pan-Africanism, I believe. I hope I said that right.
You did. You said it right.
Pan-African.
Don't worry, listeners aren't going to judge you for this.
And basically, it's just the idea that that unity, everyone's brought together to move forward.
Yeah.
So that spread to the civil rights movement, which we'll definitely get into a lot a little later on. But the whole thing was that winds of change speech. That's what really where the British elite kind of just conceded and said, that was the start of it, and then that moved to America, to African American struggle in civil rights and all that.
Spread throughout. So, worth noting while we're on this topic, 1960 Summer Olympics were held in Rome. An Ethiopian runner named Abebe Bikila, he won the marathon and became the first
He was barefoot.
African. He was barefoot when he did this.
He won that marathon barefoot.
Oh my God!
And he set a world record while he did it.
First black African man to get a gold medal in the Olympics.
Yep, from Ethiopia.
Right? So it's very very timely, and that's pretty great. It adds to the year of Africa. Same Olympics, Cassius Clay gets a gold medal in boxing. We all knew Cassius Clay, right?
Yep.
Muhammad Ali.
Then
right after that, he won his first professional boxing match in Kentucky.
He won the gold medal, and I believe light. Trying to think here, light heavy. Where was it? Light heavyweight. He won the gold medal for boxing's light heavyweight, and then he later that year won his first professional match in his native Louisville.
Yeah,
Louisville.
What a great name.
Yeah,
the start of a legend, right?
Yeah.
So same time, sticking with the theme of international events, Sri Lanka elected the first female prime minister.
That's right.
In the world.
That's
in
right.
1960.
But before we get into the first female prime minister ever, I got to tell you this because I found this just sort of mind-boggling when I read about with the Olympics.
Okay.
So that was the first Olympic Games where it was like telecast in North America.
I had no idea.
And in Mexico, and so here's how it worked. It wasn't like they just shot it and then it came on TV screens. They literally had to, if I'm not mistaken, they had to shoot and edit the videos, right? They flew them to Paris where they then re-recorded the tapes, right? Then they put them on jet planes to North America where they landed in Idlewild.
Okay.
Idlewild, if y'all don't know, Idlewild is now JFK.
Okay, that lost on me, but good to know.
And then
you grew up in New York. I don't know these things.
Yeah, Idlewild, man. Yeah. You not watch Mad Men? That's where No,
you know what? Actually, I never got into Mad Men. Again, talking about the 1960s.
Right.
Yeah, I never really got into it. I think I should though.
Yeah, eventually you'll get there.
Yeah,
everyone does.
Yeah, we all convert.
Yeah. But that was it. I mean, it was just crazy that these tapes had to be recorded and then re-recorded and then flown, and just to put them on TV that same day.
That's a lot of steps.
They went to Canada, they went to North America, they went to Mexico. So
it's amazing that they were able to pull it off, well orchestrated. You know? So anyway, Sri Lanka Prime Minister. What was her name again? Sirimavo. I'm gonna butcher this last name. Bandaranaike. Yeah. Is that right? Am I saying that right?
It's a total nightmare of a name, but yes, it's Ben. It's
no offense. We are so sorry to butcher your name. But yeah, amazing.
Ms. Bandaranaike, I am so sorry. Yeah. No disrespect. That's New York. That's no disrespect.
Exactly. Right? Well, I mean, really though, we are praising you for this.
This
first
is
elected female prime minister in the world. This is huge
in the history of the world. And well, besides probably. Well, Cleopatra or something like that, but this is like formally
contemporary leaders. So first female head of government in Sri Lanka too. You know, not necessarily a country that's known for human rights or being particularly progressive, but this is something that they stood ahead on.
And she got elected after her husband got assassinated by. I mean, the research I found called him a deranged monk.
Deranged monk killed her husband.
Right. And then so the party decided to, sweep her up, and she turned from like housewife to this just, political leader, almost overnight.
That's a great story. That's a great story. It's like the opposite of Hillary. Right? On the same trend of international, OPEC was formed in 1960 in Baghdad. It had the original countries were Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela.
Right.
And
they
still a thing.
Yeah, OPEC's around. They're pretty much a cartel at this point.
Right.
I mean, they like the diamond cartels. They pretty much own all the most of the oil interest. I think it's something like 2/5.
I don't know who follows the stock market, but a lot of the concern that we're seeing today is due to oil prices. The influence of OPEC still largely dictating financial markets globally. So
right. Well, in
big deal.
1960, United States wanted to cut the cost of oil, and so all these countries that had all these large supply of oil wanted to be able to control their own.
Right. They want to be able to bargain on their own behalf.
Right. So they came to a head, and they decided to just make their own group.
Yep.
To control the oil prices, and OPEC's still around.
And there was OPEC. Why don't we move on to obviously the big meta event that was kind of hanging over everybody in this time period until the 80s. Cold War obviously is really picking up steam. We're right in the middle of it at this point. 1960 was the year that the Soviets shot down the American U-2 spy plane and captured a Central Intelligence Agency agent, Gary Powers.
And just so we're clear, the Cold War. So I mean, everyone should remember this, but we'll just refresh.
Sure, just to be safe. Yeah.
So the Soviet Union, communists, communist nation, they wanted to spread their sort of doctrine or political religion or whatever you want to call it to more neutral countries. Mm-hmm. United States was not having it. Right. And so they spent a lot of money and resources and time into trying to stop it. So that is the Cold War in the smallest kind of nutshell that you could
simplest way you can understand it. Yeah. But this is a significant event, right? Because it's everybody knew that the two countries were spying on each other, collecting intelligence on each other, and this was this was one of the first big instances in which it was very, very obvious that the United States was not only spying on the Soviet Union but violating airspace, and shooting down this spy plane, which was perceived as being like an invisible device.
You would have think Wonder Woman was riding around the goddamn thing.
Actually, you know what? Wonder Woman did fly a plane that was very similar to a U-2.
It was a U-2, but it didn't go down though.
No, it did not. Well, no. I mean, why would it go? It was Wonder Woman. Yeah, it's like invincible. At the same time, Fidel Castro, he nationalizes all American and foreign-owned properties in Cuba. So this is really, things in Cuba are really starting to heat up. It's not too long after that we see the Cuban Missile Crisis, but we'll talk about that in a later episode.
1961, coming soon, kids.
Right, exactly, right around the corner, guys. And Alberto Corda takes that iconic picture of Che Guevara that we all have seen on T-shirts.
Yep. And it's funny too, Nathaniel, because his Castro's Cuba outlasted something like 10 presidents.
Yeah.
So while he was
the will of a dictator,
right.
It's called sticking power.
Yeah, all because of sugar. Basically because of sugar.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean that's part of the reason why Cuba is a power in and of itself, right? Like it's a big deal.
Did you see or actually obviously you saw, but there was a attempt to take Castro's life where Eisenhower actually approved an operation with the CIA, some $13 million operation for the mafia to actually kill Castro.
That does not surprise me. I did not know, but that's pretty nuts.
Just another case of what the fuck.
Right, exactly. We should create a section. It's just the what the fuck section.
Exactly.
Yeah. What's going on here, guys?
Johnny Roselli in Las Vegas talking about killing Castro.
Yeah, right.
You can't blow the guy up. We can't shoot him. Let's
invite him to dinner.
Let's poison his cigars.
Yeah, poison his cigars. Right, exactly. That seems like the most effective solution.
Yeah. That was one. I think that was like they were brainstorming. That was one of these dossiers that the CIA had to release. And
That's a way to get to him. You know, he loved his cigars.
yeah, but their Cuban connect kind of chickened out. They tried to get another guy. That didn't go through so well.
Yeah, and you know the Cubans aren't going to have Dominican cigars.
That's not
a way to get.
Let's not go there.
No, okay. I'm taking it too far. USS or the United States launches USS Enterprise.
Yes.
Right? The spaceship. So we go where
First nuclear-powered aircraft carrier.
Oh, it's not the spaceship?
Not the spaceship.
Shit.
Yeah.
My notes are wrong, dude. I thought we went over this.
We did. Were you there?
I was not.
Oh.
Damn. Okay. Anyway, first nuclear-powered... I'm totally joshing you listeners. First
Nathaniel
nuclear-powered
is
aircraft carrier.
very, very well at... he's really good at researching his stuff. So he's a jokester. He's getting around.
But I'm also a big Star Trek fan, and so I would have loved for it to be real.
Yeah.
Next time. So first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier... U.S. also completes the first underwater circumnavigation.
I love
the
this
USS
event.
Triton. It's pretty sweet, right? Operation Sandblast.
They went through Operation Sandblast and totally submerged the entire time. I think it was something like they went through the same course as Magellan.
Wow.
To do this. Yeah,
okay.
It took something like 60 days. They traveled something like 30,700 miles.
That's nuts. I haven't traveled that far in my life.
No.
Let alone underwater.
Totally submerged, not being able... They wanted very much to not be seen by anyone, any other country, not even our own.
Yeah.
And they were,
why? Like, what was the significance of this? It was just to show that they could, or
that was one reason, actually. Yeah, because at the time, Eisenhower, he's muscling up against, Khrushchev.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to show America as a technological superpower. So this was just one example of something they could do. And they ended up, not only circumnavigating the world in 60 days, totally unseen, they ended up getting a lot of data.
Okay.
Yeah, geographical, hydrographical, psychological, to see if people could
survive. That's a lot of time underwater.
Could survive that amount of time underwater.
So did they load up this submarine with research equipment so that they could, along the way, be tracking the ocean bottom, what the terrain's going to be like down there?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. All right, so it had, a lot of different benefits to it. It wasn't just flexing muscles, which, U.S. and USSR were very guilty of during this period of time.
That's right.
Talking about nuclear-powered anything, at this same time, you're starting to see a lot of popular movements against the atomic bomb and a lot of these nuclear-powered aircraft carriers and submarines and nuclear power plants. These are coming out of research that was going towards building the bomb. In the UK, in particular, there was a Ban the Bomb rally.
Ban the Bomb rally.
Which was April 18th that year in London.
Yep. Led by the campaign of nuclear disarmament.
Yeah,
they're still around. I think they're not as prevalent as they were back then in the UK, but
they're still active.
Yeah. That rally gathered some. Well, you were going to say
like 100,000 people.
100,000 people.
That's a lot of people, man. Yeah. So it was obviously it was a big issue for people taking up arms there. Scary after seeing what happened in Japan. Don't want that to be repeated. And yet we didn't actually start a process of disarmament until like a decade later.
No.
That's crazy stuff.
But it was unifying too. So
right, exactly.
These were, I think, these also known as the Aldermaston marches.
Yeah.
And so they had banners that were like Aldermaston to London, and that was basically like, it wasn't just one type of group. It was farmers,
they were
professionals,
springing up all over the place.
Right, and they were all unifying against this cause to bring up the fact that we do have all these nuclear weapons. Right, and it's taking away from the our will and from the leaders that we elect, and it's putting pretty much the entire world's in the hands of military interests.
Yeah,
and, guys in war rooms and stuff.
It's like holding everyday people hostage.
Right.
It's a scary thing. Thank God we don't have to live under that. Right. U.S. events,
or so we think.
Right, exactly. Maybe we're just they're doing a better job of hiding it from us nowadays. U.S. events.
Yes. Back to America.
Back to America.
Back to
exactly.
America.
Exactly. So, 1960 election. JFK barely wins. Who's he beat? Nixon.
Really?
Yeah, man.
Oh.
Yeah, man. It was huge.
John Fitzgerald Kennedy versus Richard Milhouse Nixon.
I know, right? Battle of the century.
Yeah.
Big deal.
Yeah.
So I mean, huge events occurring in the United States. Civil rights movement is getting kicked off. Eisenhower signs the Civil Rights Act in 1960, becomes law. Big deal for the U.S.
It was a step in the right direction. I mean, we had the Civil Rights Act of 1957, and that led to the Civil Rights Act of 1960. But that helped more. That Eisenhower wanted to stop sort of all these things that were going on, the South Church bombings that were going off more. That were more prevalent, but that led the way. That led to the Civil Rights Act of '64, which LBJ brought in, and that really changed.
But the parallels with what we're experiencing today, obviously not the same level, right? But you've got the Black Lives Matters movement right now. You have all these horrible incidents that are occurring in churches, mostly in the South United States. Currently, it's
still holding on to that.
Yeah,
whatever that is.
Whatever that
Dukes of Hazzard
was.
Fans and all that.
I don't know about that. It was actually a fun show.
It was a fun show.
Let's not knock it too hard.
The Confederate flag, I'm knocking more.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So
Daisy's
having
fine.
that on the
I'm all good with
card.
Daisy. Yeah, the Duke boys, that's fine. But
the flag itself, a little problematic.
Going back to serious civil rights movement talk.
Right. Exactly. Sorry to get us off base with some TV.
Yeah. It's all coming to a head. Right. I mean,
exactly.
we're seeing things that have not been done before in the civil rights movement. 1960 was a big part of that. You got the Civil Rights Act of 1960. You have the Greensboro sit-in, where the 4 students, decide to sit in at a lunch counter in Woolworths, and they're not served. So basically, they had spent money in the Woolworths, and they're asking, they pull out their receipts and say, well, our money was good everywhere else in the store. Why can't we be served lunch?
Right.
And the interesting thing about that event, and what surprised me about that event, was that spurred other sit-ins in other sort of college towns, because these were 4 college students that just sat and at that lunch counter in Greensboro. But that spread, where it was something like going on like 55 cities, in a couple of months.
Yeah. Was this one event was really what spurred the sit-in movement, and the sit-in as being a tool for protest?
Exactly.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And now fun fact, where that Woolworths is now the home of the International Civil Rights Center and Museum. And they actually still have a restored version of that lunch counter there.
Very nice. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a really, really interesting tidbit there. That's fantastic. Robert Kennedy, he was doing something with Martin Luther King at this point, right?
Robert Kennedy and actually John F. Kennedy. So during the time of while they were having this presidential campaign, Martin Luther King got arrested for marching in, I believe, Atlanta.
Right.
And JFK actually called Coretta Scott King, and I believe RFK got in touch with some of the officers that had arrested Dr. King, and they got him out.
Yeah. And that starts more as well.
Yeah, and even Martin Luther King said, it wasn't one Kennedy or the Kennedy brothers. It was a unified voice. There was a lot of different people that came out and helped them get released.
Right, exactly. It was a concerted effort.
And you could actually look that up. That was just released, video of him talking about that.
Really, this was
on CNN. There was
When was this released? When did this come out?
Not sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Pretty
but
recent.
Pretty recent.
Oh, man.
Newly discovered, sort of like Dr. Kim talking about it. So.
Okay. Yeah, I always wonder, like, how do things like this, not unless someone is actively trying to, keep them under wraps, how do things like this, take so long to come out? Like, why is it just now, being discovered? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
It's an important event. Like, why wouldn't this have been public record earlier on?
This might have been sitting in a can in someone's garage. They found it at a garage sale, or it was sitting in, the basement of a library.
Yeah. The latter, more likely.
Yeah,
probably. All right. Major Supreme Court decision at this point too, right? Boynton versus Virginia.
Yep.
Declares segregation in public transportation is illegal in the United States. There was a really good piece on This American Life recently about how segregation in schools is actually still still a thing. It's still pretty prevalent, and thought is the only way we're going to really close the achievement gap is if we start to approach solving segregation again. But it's a difficult topic for people to talk about because this is 1960 when this
right.
occurs, and it's still a problem. You still have
55 years later.
Exactly. You still have segregation, not necessarily institutional segregation, but it's occurring, and it's something that's
more
still needs to be addressed.
subversive.
Exactly. It's just for whatever reason it's still held on and gotten worse over time. It's like we haven't really learned anything. But you know what? I
think there's more of people viewing each other with like being colorblind. I think that's definitely becoming more and more these last couple of years, becoming more and more of a thing.
Yeah, well, or people saying that is the way that you should be, but in a lot of ways it's becoming an excuse for ignoring the issue altogether.
Right.
It's a dodge, which sucks. But you know what? We got down a little bit, right? We started dealing with some really serious topics, super, super important. Let's lift it up a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about what happened in culture, right?
Yep.
Like 1960 was a big year for music, for movies. A lot of big stuff happened there. I'm a huge horror movie fan. Really, really love Hitchcock movies. And Psycho was released in theaters in 1960.
1960, yep.
Yeah, pretty big deal for
Very iconic
for
film.
people who are into movies. Yeah, you're huge into movies. This is probably high up there on your list, right?
And it's funny because I was researching Psycho and I haven't seen it in years. And I used to be. I think I had seen it a few times, years and years ago. It was one of my favorite movies, and it's been years since I watched it. But very provocative, very controversial for its time. A lot of firsts. And this was actually, people don't really think this, but this was Hitchcock's first serious horror movie.
Right.
And this laid the groundwork for all these crazy slasher movies that we saw, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
right,
and
exactly.
Halloween, and I mean, you had stuff going on in that movie, and the struggle to get that movie made. I mean, I'm pretty sure that was a film with Anthony Hopkins, right? That was the subject of that film.
Yep.
But Psycho had a lot of firsts. Psycho had the first, some funny facts. Psycho had the first scene of a toilet being flushed in a movie.
I did not know that.
Psycho had the first scene of that very beginning scene where Janet Leigh's sister, I forget her name. I think her name. Well, Marion's sister is in a bra, having kind of having that affair in the hotel room. That was never
pretty risque.
Very risque for its time.
Yeah, definitely pushing a lot of boundaries, which obviously Hitchcock was known for doing. Psycho definitely seminal breakout film for that for the horror industry in general. Really established a lot, as you mentioned.
There's a lot going on in that movie. I mean, I was reading some, and it doesn't seem that way, but I mean, I was reading one person's critique of it, and it was something like, every woman who watched that movie feared for her life, and every boy had a sick, sadistic view because they were peering into, they were in Norman Bates' shoes because it's just a lot. There's a lot.
I watched that movie today, and it still
still holds up.
It's hard, not hard to watch, but it's definitely it's scary, and it's really intense.
That shower scene has become like myth at this point.
Exactly.
It's like film lore. I mean, something like, so it's about 4 minutes long, and it has 77 different camera angles that was used.
Wow.
And it was about it's about 3 minutes long, and it has 50 cuts. And Hitchcock actually was stabbing a watermelon to simulate that sound of Norman killing Marion in the shower.
Watermelons with versatile fruits. Yeah. What else do we have coming out this year? There's a ton. We could do a whole show just about this.
Yeah, a lot of cool movies. Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
The Apartment.
I can say, maybe a little embarrassed. I've never seen the original Magnificent Seven, but the 90s remake.
Just get out.
Awesome. Okay, I'll leave. Sorry.
Just leave.
Bye, guys.
All right. Come back, Nathaniel.
Okay, I didn't leave.
What else? Inherit the Wind, which was a big film.
You were talking about this one.
I
had never seen this.
Yeah, it's about the Scopes trial.
Yeah.
Evolution.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
Darwin and all that. It was pretty much like canon. I mean, I know I watched it in high school and in college. Okay. That was like a big thing. The Alamo came out.
Oh, love that movie.
Butterfield 8 came out. Ocean's 11.
Ocean's 11, right. Exactly.
Right. So a lot of interesting movies came out. Time Machine came out that year.
Mm-hmm. And Kill a Mockingbird, moving to books, was published in 1960 as well. Later won the Nobel Prize for literature.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty important book. You have the new piece that was just published as well.
Mockingbirds don't do one thing, but sing their hearts out for us, and that's why it's a sin to kill a mockingbird.
That's true. Good quote.
But there's also that connection to the civil rights movement.
Exactly.
And, in that time. So,
exactly.
Very, very important book, and very lot of warmth, a lot of you have Scout. She's a very uplifting voice, but also dealing with very, very dark, very serious topics.
Yeah.
Harper Lee, she said something to the extent, I'm paraphrasing, but she said something to the extent of it wasn't so much that it was about her childhood, but it's a really good example of writing what you know. So that's why there is that sort of genuine soul to that book.
Right, exactly. It's very relatable, if not in a difficult sense.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I read it, but I remember really loving it at the time. I'm sure that
again, high school canon.
Exactly. Those things just stick with you. You don't forget easily. Yeah. Big year for music. The Twist dance craze was started.
Yep.
Chubby
Checker.
Yeah, Chubby Checker. What a name, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Do you know who came up with that name?
No, who came up with that name?
Dick Clark's wife came up with that name.
Okay.
She wanted to do because she so Chubby Checker was known for being able to imitate styles, not unlike Ray Charles before he really blew up. And so she created a name. I think it was something like, Fats Domino. Fat is Chubby, and Domino Checker. Yeah, he call you Chubby Checker. It's literally how he got that name.
Wow, that's incredible. I wish I had that kind of story for my name, or nicknames for that matter.
We'll come up with something for you.
Okay, please do. We'll make that one of the goals of the show. Listeners, if you guys have any ideas, you can write those into us. We'll follow up with the email address afterwards.
Definitely.
I just would really hope that it is something that puts me in a good light. I'd prefer not to be too embarrassed.
We've got 2 or 3 nicknames that you've asked me not to say on the air.
That's true. Let's just not talk about them right now.
Yeah. I believe the word blood oath was used.
Blood oath.
Or made.
For a reason not to talk about it. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Don't worry, listeners. You will not have to engage in a blood oath.
But you might.
Maybe. Depends on how much you really want to be engaged. The Flintstones and the Andy Griffith Show both start in 1960.
Going to TV, popping over to the world of TV. You got the Flintstones starting.
Oh, yeah.
Friday nights, I think it was, on ABC.
Yeah.
Andy Griffith Show.
Rawhide.
Route 66.
Yep.
which I didn't know too much about Route 66. That was more of like an anthology series that I mean, Twilight Zone was kind of prevalent at that time, but it was inspired by Jack Kerouac's On the Road, of all things.
Yeah.
He was not happy about that.
I don't think he would be. It seems pretty antithetical.
Yeah.
Sad note, Howdy Doody was canceled
That's
after
right.
13 years.
After 13 years, NBC pulls the plug, as they are wont to do.
As they want to do, exactly. They always just prematurely killing great shows.
Yep. And then just going back to the movie world, that was the year Ben-Hur won all those Oscars.
Yeah, 32nd Academy Awards ceremony.
Yep. Winning 11 out of 12 nominations,
which is mind-boggling.
Yeah,
that's crazy. It's a great movie. Totally worth it. It was a remake, right, of a movie from 1926.
Yep.
Yeah.
Silent film, same name.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about some other sort of funny things that happened that year.
There's plenty.
Domino's Pizza was founded.
Yeah. So when I read that, really surprised.
That was how I got you.
It is exactly how you got me. I just couldn't wrap my head around, if they've been around for so long, why is their pizza still so bad? Maybe that's a controversial statement, but that's my feeling.
No, I agree.
He's giving me devil stares right now. So
it's
you guys can't see this, but he's very angry.
I'm a native New Yorker.
Oh, okay.
I'm a native. Yeah,
Domino's?
I got respect for New York pizza.
Right.
That's about it.
Okay.
I mean, once you New York pizza, you can't really have Papa John's.
That's true, but are you saying you could have Domino's?
Gun on my head?
No.
I don't know.
No, I'm not that kind of person.
Maybe cheesy sticks?
Cheesy sticks?
Yeah.
We can do that. We'll get those for next time.
But yeah, no. So we had Thomas Moynihan borrowing $600 to buy a pizza parlor in Detroit, and he renamed it Domino's, and that's kind of how that got.
That's how it got started.
That's how it got going.
That's like the true entrepreneur's story. It's great to hear.
Yep. Some other things, Nathaniel. We had the AFL.
Yeah.
Kind of get set up as the rival league to the NFL.
Yeah, right, exactly. Do you remember the XFL?
I do.
Yeah, ridiculous. But
the
moment we started talking about this, I
night terrors.
Night terrors.
I still got night terrors.
Right, exactly.
Sleep paralysis when I think of the XFL.
Exactly. It's pretty horrifying. So what was significant about the AFL? Like, how was this a thing other than the NFL?
So basically, we see a lot of, and I can't remember specifically what it was, but a lot of the sort of most popular things about the NFL that we see now, just sort of like that action-packed, visceral sort of sport, a lot of that came from the AFL. And we see some teams that are, still around when, eventually the AFL and the NFL merged.
Right.
But the AFL brought about the Boston Patriots and the Houston Oilers, the Buffalo Bills, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Denver Broncos,
laundry list,
the Dallas Texans,
the Raiders.
Yep. They were actually, initially, their name was supposed to be the Oakland Senores.
Oh.
And then they changed it to the Raiders.
Keep that.
Yeah.
God, Raiders, so aggressive. I guess, fans love that.
And also just another thing, it did bring about, and again, going right back to the civil rights movement, the AFL was more accepting of black players, and they drafted more black players than the NFL did.
That's a great thing to know. It's something that I'm sure most people don't realize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it led to not only an explosion in black talent on the field, but eventual entry into scouting. African Americans who become scouts and coordinators, and ultimately head coaches, which is huge. It's a real big deal. Very cool. You are a big fan of this documentary Harvest of Shame. You've been talking about this a lot lately, and this came out. This came out in 1960 as well, right? Yep. Edward Murrow presented this.
This was his last sort of documentary, or his last news documentary for CBS,
right?
Before he took a government job,
right?
But it was more about just poverty in America,
the
struggle of the migrant worker,
right?
Sort of a culture that was going on back then. I mean, you had one mother having a hard time feeding her 9 kids, and that really put a spotlight where people saw.
Well, this was the first time,
Right.
Literally millions of Americans were able to look into this this part of American society that was kind of swept under the rug, and this really was the start of modern day documentary journalism. It was one of the first.
It was presented the day after Thanksgiving.
Right,
actually,
exactly,
too.
Which is the best time possible. That's exactly when I want to be watching a documentary about want.
Yeah. And it's on YouTube now, so in case anyone does want to check it out, it is an interesting piece.
We'll share the link. We'll make the link
Yeah.
available to everybody, so everybody can watch this for themselves. That'll be good. In his closing remarks, Moreau is famous for looking squarely in the camera and urging viewers to take action.
Right.
Really, really urging them to not just have consumed this content that he produced, but actually to go out and really make the lives of these people that he was writing about better off. What did he say? He said that the people have seen the strength to. I've seen that people who have the strength to harvest fruits and vegetables, they maybe don't have the strength to actually influence legislation, and that it's up to the viewers to actually take these matters in their own hands.
Right.
It's worth noting that this is still an issue in this country. It's not like this documentary came out, people were aware, and then we solved it. I grew up in California. California has a big issue where there are lots of migrant workers that really make the state run. The state feeds much of the United States, and yet these workers, because they're undocumented, some would say that they're illegal. They're treated as almost it's like property. It's like virtual slavery.
Slaves.
It's sad. Yeah, it's real sad.
And the fact that we're so privileged.
Yeah.
That if you like just thinking about being in their shoes for a day.
Yeah.
Just will.
Which was why this piece was so important, right? It really gave you that inside look at a time when it really wasn't something that people were hearing about, and it's a great reminder. Us covering this was a reminder for me that this is a long-standing issue that still is yet to actually come to a resolution.
Yep. Another really important event, Nathaniel. It's not connected, but I meant to mention it before. 1960 was the year that Ruby Bridges, she was the first African American child to attend an all-white elementary school in the South, and that was William Frantz Elementary School. After court-ordered integration in New Orleans,
right?
So, and if anyone's interested in checking that out, feel free to look up Ruby Bridges. And there's also a very famous Norman Rockwell painting called "The Problem We All Live In" that captures that moment perfectly.
Right.
So I just wanted to mention that. I forgot to mention it before.
Yeah. So we're coming up on our time limit here. I think there's no better way to conclude
some bullet points,
discussion like this than some bullet points. Talk about some the fun inventions that came out during the year and other things that we just didn't have time to cover tonight.
Do you want to start?
Sure, man. So I'm really into inventions myself. I just want to say I totally geeked when I learned that the laser was invented in 1960.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty awesome. Laid the groundwork for a lot of really great innovations since then. The Ossophone, which is actually the world's first voice recorder, came out at that time. It allows you to leave voice messages, no matter how annoying they are. Heart pacemaker, the photocopier, the aluminum can went into circulation for canned goods, and weather satellite. The first weather satellite, the Tiros 1, came out in 1960. So
also the FDA approved the first contraceptive pill.
Yeah,
called Enovid. Right. In 1960, and that was just going back to the sexual revolution.
Yeah, well, it's it's about to get kicked off, so that's good timing. So
what about some medical? Yeah, well, there's medical science.
There were some pretty successful ones. First successful kidney transplant. Yep. So that's pretty huge. And the American Heart Association first linked smoking to heart disease. So this is really the first time that an established medical association is acknowledging that smoking is actually bad for your health. Yep. Obviously, it took a while since then, or after that point, to actually start to be regulating smoking more and eliminating it from public spaces. But
tobacco is so entrenched in American culture.
Exactly. Talking about Mad Men again, right?
People could say that tobacco was the reason that, one of the major motivators for America to be where it is now.
Yeah, America's built initially on industry and cash crops, and tobacco was the biggest one.
And it's terrible, and it's killing people, but
yeah, right,
it's crazy.
Exactly.
Another fun fact: in 1960, we had a gentleman named John Reynolds setting the age of the solar system at 4,950,000,000,000 years.
Can't even comprehend that. That's way too much.
But what other fun bullet points do we got here, Nathaniel? So we have. A more serious note, and this is more for people who in the Latino culture definitely know about the Mirabal sisters.
Yeah.
And they opposed the dictatorship of Rafael Trujillo, and they were more involved in like sort of secret activities against him. But 3 of the 4 sisters were assassinated on November 25th, 1960.
Wow. Lighter note. First Japanese anime comes out.
Yep.
Premieres in 1960.
Yep.
Three Tails.
Three Tails.
Yep. Pretty great. I grew up a big fan of Dragon Ball Z and Gundam Wing, so you know what? I'm happy Three Tails became a thing.
Another invention, the Japanese company introduced the first felt pen.
Also a great
felt
Japanese innovation. The ossiphone, I didn't mention that before, also a Japanese invention, so Japan was on fire in 1960, obviously.
You had 2 major Dr. Seuss books.
Oh man,
were published that year.
This is probably my favorite.
1 fish,
we have here.
2 fish, red fish, blue fish,
and green eggs and ham.
Big
deal.
Yeah,
big deal.
One of my favorite books still.
I still love to eat green eggs and ham. Maybe not. Anyway,
that
Johnny Cash.
That might be a medical issue, Nathaniel. I meant to talk to you about that.
It could be. It does usually end wrong. The Justice League, for all comic book fans. Premieres in
was
1960.
Conceived in 1960.
Exactly.
By writer Gardner Fox.
Yep.
And they first appeared in the comic book The Brave and the Bold, issue number 28.
What a comic book name. Right? The Brave and the Bold. I love that.
Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern.
Batman and Superman as cameos.
Yep. Martian Manhunter. We can't leave him out. People always do, but...
It's some great stuff. And now we're looking forward to a Justice League movie.
Right.
I can't wait, man.
Yep.
It's going to be amazing.
Do you know that Steven Spielberg's next movie, Bridge of Spies, is about the U-2 spy plane being shot down?
Really? Oh, well, we have to see it. Obviously.
Yep. Tom Hanks plays the lawyer who actually got Powers, the pilot that was shot down.
Yep.
He negotiated his release.
Oh,
that movie's coming out in November or December.
Okay.
Bridge of Spies.
All right, look for that, listeners. It's going to be great.
Other cool stuff. Marilyn Monroe. She won best comedy actress for Some Like It Hot.
Okay.
Golden Globe.
Yeah.
For that.
That's awesome.
And Joanne Woodward, right? She got the first ever star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1960.
Oh, so that's when it started. And Aretha Franklin recorded 4 demos in New York City. Signed with Columbia Records that year. Pretty awesome. So you are really into. We mentioned how you're like really into movies.
Yep.
There were some movie titles that really stood out. You know, in a world where the Sci-Fi Channel keeps putting out wonderful films with names like Sharktopus versus Whale Wolf.
Yeah.
These are pretty good too. Why don't you rattle through them? I'll let you own this.
So you had Cinderfella with Jerry Lewis.
Love it.
Right. And we got Dinosaurs, which I thought was just a word that drunk people said to describe dinosaurs, but no, it was a film.
It's an actual thing.
Someone paid to make that movie.
Oh man!
And you got The Brides of Dracula, and what else?
The wackiest ship in the army.
The wackiest ship in the army.
I want to see that right now. Actually, could we do a whole podcast just about the wackiest ship in the army?
Sure.
Okay, great. That sounds like it'd be pretty. So
fantastic. We're scrapping the entire format.
Yep. After episode 1.
Yep. We decided to make a change on Radio Retrospekt.
Yep.
And we're just going to be talking about the wackiest ship in the army for the duration.
That will be the only thing we talk about from this point forward.
Dear God, no.
I know everyone out there is really looking forward to this because I know I am.
And then some cool songs that came out that year. Just to touch upon, we had
tons
of great songs, right?
Yeah.
It's Now or Never
Yep.
by Elvis Presley. Again, we mentioned The Twist by Chubby Checker. Only the Lonely with Roy Orbison, which I think was a movie too.
Yeah, I think it was.
I think it was a film. Georgia on My Mind by Ray Charles.
Yeah. Oh, probably my favorite on this list here.
Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini by Brian Hyland.
Another classic.
Right. And Stay, which I always love. Stay by Maurice Williams and the Zodiacs.
Yeah. Walk Don't Run by the Ventures.
Yep.
Shop Around, Smokey Robinson, The Miracles.
Puppy Love.
Yeah.
Polanco.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
a lot of cool songs.
Yeah.
I mean, every year has a different every decade has a different flavor
Yeah.
to it. But
And we'll put together a playlist for
Definitely.
everybody to hear, so you can get the sounds of the years of which we're discussing. So everything that we just mentioned here, plus some others, will be included on this playlist, as well as any other resources that we mentioned throughout this discussion.
Wonderful World.
Yeah,
Sam
Wonderful World.
Cooke.
Exactly, and that
Great Sam Cooke. Yeah.
that is a great way to sign off.
Yeah.
With the Wonderful World.
Wonderful
We'll
World.
put that on. Thank you guys so much for listening to us. We covered all of 1960. Well, not all. There's plenty more to research, and we'll be providing additional information for you guys again through the website and Twitter.
Yep. So we have our you can reach us at Radio Retrospekt, and that is Retrospekt with a KT at the end.
Yep.
K is in karate, T is in Thomas.
Yep. Tweet at us to that address.
Tell us
at
what
Radio
we did
Retrospekt.
wrong. Corrections.
Oh my gosh, we can't wait to hear that. That's
if
gonna be
you
great.
if you know anything cool that happened in that year, definitely let us know, because we'd love to talk about it. We might even give you a quick little shout out.
Exactly. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to be a guest host.
Possibly.
Maybe.
Yep.
That could be fun.
And then you can reach us too at Radio Retrospekt, and again that's KT at the end. Radio Retrospekt at gmail.com.
Yep. We look forward to hearing from you guys, and we will check in with you again next week.
Yep. And what year will we be talking about? On our next
1970, man.
1970.
I know, another big year.
Yep.
I just can't get disco out of my head whenever I think about it.
That is going to be funky.
It's gonna be good.
gonna be
good.
funky.
I'm looking forward to the soundtrack for that one. It'll be great.
Guys, thank you so much for listening and putting up with us, and we will see you next time. We'll be talking about 1970.
Take it easy. Have a great week.